USA and Russia prisoner swap, Brittney Griner. The exchange of WNBA star Brittney Griner and arms dealer Viktor Bout was a rare moment of successful diplomacy between Moscow and Washington as relations between the two countries deteriorate over the war in Ukraine. For many, the trade will evoke memories of Soviet-era spy swaps, a more positive reminder of that era than the nuclear standoff that President Joe Biden recently said left the world facing its most dangerous moment since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Analysts said the fact that the Biden administration and the Kremlin were still able to carry out such talks was a notably positive sign as Russia and the West enter what many see as a new Cold War. Welcome to Facts Insight. For more videos such as this one, please visit this channel for insights based solely on facts. Make sure to subscribe and give a like. Who is Brittney Griner? Two-time Olympic gold winner Griner is one of the highest-paid players in the Women's National Basketball Association, WNBA, and has been hailed for her dunking ability. The 31-year-old, who measures 6'9" in height, plays for Phoenix Mercury, a team based in Phoenix, Arizona. The Texas-born athlete was married to Sherelle, who she met in university, and describes her as her best friend and love of her life. Griner was hailed as an American hero by fellow WNBA star Nikwa Okwomike in the wake of the charges against her. What is she accused of? Griner was detained at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport in February this year while returning to play basketball in Russia. She was later charged with intentionally importing narcotics into the country and pleaded guilty to drug possession and smuggling on the 7th of July, the second day after her trial. But the athlete said she had no intention of committing a crime and had acted unintentionally after packing for her trip to Moscow in a hurry. She told the court, "I'd like to plead guilty, Your Honor, but there was no intent. I didn't want to break the law." After that, the lawyers hoped that the sportswoman will receive the most lenient sentence possible. Similar incident in history. In the post-World War II era, such high-stakes trades typically featured spies. One of the best-known Cold War swaps involved American pilot Francis Gary Powers, whose U-2 spy plane was shot down in 1960 over the Soviet Union. Powers was traded 2 years later for Soviet spy Rudolf Abel in an exchange on a fog-shrouded bridge between West and East Berlin. The story behind this dramatic exchange was told in Steven Spielberg's 2015 historical drama, Bridge of Spies. Another exchange saw Nicholas Standoff, an American journalist who was imprisoned in Moscow in 1986, released that same year in a swap with Soviet physicist Gennady Zakharov, who had been arrested on espionage charges in New York. The largest U.S.-Russian spy swap since the Cold War came in 2010 when 10 Russian agents, including Anna Chapman, were exchanged for 4 Russians accused of spying for the West. Among them, Sergei Skripal, who was later poisoned with a nerve agent in the United Kingdom. The British government blamed Moscow for the poisoning, which it has denied. U.S.-Russian relations have spiraled over the war in Ukraine. And as the conflict marches toward a first anniversary in February, Smith said Griner's release would suggest the two countries are interested in managing the nature and extent of the conflict in order to prevent it from escalating to dangerous levels. Arrested on the eve of war. Griner was arrested at a Moscow airport in February on drug charges when vape cartridges containing a small quantity of cannabis oil were found in her luggage. Just days before Russia invaded Ukraine, she pleaded guilty but said it was an honest mistake. The Biden administration declared she'd been wrongfully detained and swung into action. It has made the release of U.S. hostages a priority and created a special envoy for this purpose. But Griner's case was shadowed by added layers of complexity and pressure, not least that negotiations took place against the backdrop of a war in which the U.S. is arming Ukraine. Still, the administration in April was able to win the release of an American Marine imprisoned in Russia, Trevor Reed. It exchanged him for a Russian pilot sentenced to cocaine trafficking charges in the U.S., demonstrating that the two countries could keep an open channel separate from their geopolitical tensions. This, together with the publicity surrounding Griner's detention, galvanized the families of other detainees who band together to lobby for more action from the White House. The negotiating strategy. In July, Griner sent a handwritten letter to Biden saying she was afraid she'd been detained indefinitely and pleading with him not to forget her. Just days later, Secretary of State Antony Blinken publicly expressed frustration that Russian counterparts were refusing to engage with what he called a substantial offer. That was a highly unusual move in the discreet world of hostage diplomacy and a window into what Biden called painstaking negotiations. It became clear that the Russians wanted a prisoner swap for Viktor Bout, a notorious arms dealer who was serving a 25-year sentence in U.S. prison. In Russia, he was referred to simply as a businessman, known to have carried out risky aviation trips to dangerous places. It's not clear whether he had connection to Russian intelligence, but both Russian and U.S. experts agree that he must have known quite a lot, which is probably why the Kremlin wanted him back. It was a big ask, and the administration negotiated hard to include Whelan, a corporate security executive who's been jailed for nearly 4 years. He's been convicted of espionage and is serving a 16-year prison sentence. Despite Blinken's public statement in July, U.S. officials said the talks were stonewalled for months. Griner received a harsh 9-year prison sentence, lost an appeal, and last month was sent to a remote penal colony. Things looked dark for the basketball player until today. In recent weeks, both Russian and U.S. officials had expressed cautious optimism, but the announcement of a prisoner swap was delivered without warning. The prisoner swap. The U.S. official said the agreement came together in the last 48 hours. The sticking point appears to have been the 2-for-1 deal. The Russians made clear Griner was the only option. This was not a choice of which American to bring home. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the choice was one or none. Biden made the very painful decision to go ahead, and Griner and Bout are reported to have passed each other on the tarmac at the Abu Dhabi airport where the exchange took place. Shortly afterwards, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and Saudi Arabia released a statement saying their joint mediation efforts had helped secure Griner's release. Biden thanked the UAE for providing a location for the swap, but the White House played down the notion of a formal mediation role. The White House press secretary Karen Jean-Pierre said that the U.S. was grateful to Saudi Arabia for raising the issue with Moscow, but the deal was negotiated by the U.S. and Russia. U.S. officials from the president down repeatedly said they regretted that Whelan was not included in the deal and vowed to continue efforts to secure his release. The difficulties had to do with the sham espionage charges made against him, according to a U.S. official. Apparently, it is a bigger deal for the Russians to trade a spy than a sports star. Questions arise. Who is freed U.S. basketball star Brittney Griner? The Merchant of Death, who is Viktor Bout? And Paul Whelan, the ex-U.S. Marine jailed in Russia. It was a reminder that there are other Americans who have been detained for much longer than 9 months who don't have celebrity status to help propel their case. It was also a reminder that there are limits to what the U.S. can achieve and that it had to pay a high price. The other side always gets a strong vote, U.S. hostage envoy Roger Carstens recently said. In this case, the U.S. traded a convicted arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death for a sports star caught with less than a gram of cannabis oil. That this prisoner swap is the second this year, however, indicates that the Russians and Americans do keep up shadowy contracts even though official relations are frozen. Let us know in the comments below if you found this video helpful. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching, and see you soon in the next video.